My name is Mark Larson, and I'm the Chief Criminal Deputy of the King County Prosecutors. And I've been in that position now for 25 years. In all those years, I can tell you that I am still fascinated by the work that we do in our office. I'm fascinated by the people that we serve. And I'm also fascinated by the people that come to do the work alongside me. And today I have with me one of those very, very special people, Natalie Walton Anderson. Natalie, welcome. Glad you're here.
Thank you.
You know, we're an office of innovation. I think we're regarded in that way, and I think we see ourselves that way. One of our great innovations of the last couple of years has been LEAD, Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion. And you've been a big part of that. Before we get any further, can you just tell us what is LEAD? How does it operate?
Sure. Well, LEAD, Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion, it's a pre-arrest, pre-booking program, and it was developed to address a number of issues, one being disproportionate arrest in terms of drug arrest in King County, specifically with African American males, and basically law enforcement needed another tool. The community needed another tool in order to address low-level drug use, low-level drug dealing, and prostitution in our city. And really the only tool that law enforcement had was to take people to jail. And so they needed something that was immediate, a quick response. And so that's basically how LEAD was developed. Operationally, how LEAD works, it's really simple. Law enforcement sees somebody that they know that is involved in drug activity, drug use, low-level drug dealing, but primarily drug use, simple possession cases. And instead of taking them to jail, they have the opportunity to call an outreach coordinator or case manager that will respond immediately to the scene or to the precinct, and those individuals who would be subject to arrest and being taken to jail have the opportunity to engage immediately in treatment. It's a warm handoff. A warm handoff.
What does that mean, and how does that operate for the people that are coming into the LEAD program?
You know, a warm handoff is symbolic of a lot of things. One, law enforcement has a relationship with these individuals that they continually contact in the street. And so giving law enforcement the opportunity to have an alternative to jail and actually being able to release the handcuffs of an individual that they had in custody and turn them over to a case manager starts a different type of dynamic and relationship. The warm handoff also means that somebody is not lost in the abyss. Typically what happens is we have all kinds of community-based services, but you know, they're open from 8 to 5 or during the week, and individuals who have been chemically addicted and mentally ill for years and years and homeless, you know, if they had the ability to actually go to an office and come to an appointment and they had that stability and structure, they would do it. And this warm handoff means that they are getting an immediate introduction to treatment.
Cops on the street, as you say, who have relationships and know many of these individuals because they see them all day, every day on their shifts and in their beats, really sort of having a new tool. And of course, I'm remembering back when we prosecuted thousands, literally thousands of small narcotics cases through the 80s and into the 90s. And of course, we developed drug court eventually and other alternatives. But this really gives police a different tool.
Law enforcement's really taken ownership of the program, and it's because we've utilized and given them the discretion to use this tool when they see appropriate. They take ownership of it because they're actually referring the individuals to the program, and they have continued communication about how this individual is doing, which is different than a lot of community-based programs. So they refer somebody and they're still involved, and they're involved in a number of different ways. They have communication with the case managers on the street. The case managers in the LEAD program are all outreach-based. They ride together with police, they're on the phone with police, they're texting, they're communicating about clients, and law enforcement actually has more eyes and more information than they did before, because typically we're all siloed in our own jobs, and here they know how somebody's doing because they have constant communication with the case managers, with the prosecutor's office, and they've really taken ownership of it, and it's because they're able to utilize their discretion in a different way.
As important as the police are in the front lines of this, I know there's other really crucial partners, and can you tell us about who those are and some of what they contribute?
I think that really the key to this program is, again, the communication and collaboration, but it's really the immediate response of the case managers that work with the LEAD program. And a lot of it is based on the fact that they are outreach-based. They are not office-based. They are out in our communities. They are in the alleys. They are in areas such as the jungle, underneath the freeways. They are actively looking for and seeking out their clients on a daily basis. They have hours that extend outside of a normal workday. They assist their clients in getting to court, going to hospitals, getting their medical appointments. getting into treatment in terms of mental health and chemical dependency and following up with that. And they really do follow the participants that are in LEAD through every step and every journey of them trying to get to a place where they can re-engage in treatment, get into housing, and I think that's key. And I also think that the work that the case managers do alongside of the police is really what makes this different. And then obviously the next step too is, what can we do as prosecutors and also defense attorneys to help this collaborative effort?
Many of us who have worked in the system for a while, and a lot of our law enforcement partners are able to look back too and know that when we were really prosecuting drug cases kind of hot and heavy, there were a lot of issues, some of which you mentioned earlier, but we never turned the tide. We never got to the place where we felt like, well, we really have this thing whipped, and narcotics issues are sort of taken care of in our community. So finding another solution becomes really crucial in that kind of environment, it seems.
Absolutely. We need a lot of tools in order to deal with our current problem that we have in terms of drug use. And LEAD is one of those great tools that can be used, but we need a lot because people are individuals and not every single program is going to fit for every single individual.
One of the sort of phenomena that we're watching across the country and increasingly in King County, of course, is the opioid epidemic. Has that come into bear in LEAD, and how has that sort of made things different or created new challenges for you?
It's brought more attention to the fact that we need to do something to address the epidemic in our society, and it's really helped LEAD get more attention in terms of the immediate introduction to treatment. And it's spread throughout all communities of all races and socioeconomic backgrounds, and so no one can ignore it at this point. We have to do something.
We were a national leader over 20 years ago now, starting I think the nation's 6th drug court, if I remember correctly, back in 1996 or 7. LEAD, of course, comes along after that, but I'm aware, as between the two, drug court operates really as an abstinence-based program. LEAD is harm reduction. Many people may not know what that is. Can you tell us what's the difference and why is that important to the LEAD program?
The LEAD model is that they're going to meet people where they're at. And so in terms of LEAD, harm reduction doesn't mean that they're going to say you must engage in services. It's more of what are your goals, what is it that you're trying to achieve, and they use a lot of motivational interviewing to get people to a place where they're ready to engage in treatment, but they don't start out as an abstinence-based program. In addition to that, people are not discharged if they don't engage in treatment, if they continue to relapse, and that's something that's different than a lot of other community programs. So the harm reduction model is, can we reduce the use? Can we reduce criminal involvement? Can we reduce the fact that this is also something that's contributing to a lot of other factors in the community that the community are concerned about? With regard to drug court is a wonderful tool. It is a mainstream court diversion program, meaning that if you complete drug court, your criminal case is dismissed. And while drug court is based in an abstinence model, drug court does a lot of things in terms of harm reduction. They accept people that are on medicated assisted treatment, and they work as an end goal to that abstinence model. So as much as people want to say that LEAD and drug court are different, they adopt the same principles within their own model. It's just that one is pre-arrest, pre-booking diversion. We don't want people to even get in the system, but there's always going to be those individuals in the system, and drug court tries to address people who are already in the system. And what's great, especially in the last year or two, is that drug court and LEAD are working together to try and create a continuum of support and services. We refer people from LEAD to drug court who maybe have become more stable, and drug court are referring people who are stable and are able to graduate drug court, but they're still in a tenuous spot to LEAD for that continued support.
Yeah. How does this compare to more of our traditional approach to this, and what are some of those differences that are important from your perspective?
In terms of our traditional models, we can point to so many cases where we have filed a case of drug possession. That person served time in jail. They haven't had access to resources. They're released only to do the same exact thing and be back in our jail 2 months later. And so LEAD offers that option. And I think it is better than what we were doing before because it gives an option for treatment, and we just never know when that time's going to be.
I think you mentioned earlier that LEAD is in part can help us address some of the problems around disproportionality that have infected and affected our history of drug investigations and prosecutions sort of historically. How so?
Well, When LEAD first started, I think what we were seeing is that approximately 58 to 60% of the people being arrested for drug crimes were African American, primarily African American males. And what we've seen with the LEAD program is the police are doing exactly the same thing they were doing before. And in the first several years of the program, they were diverting or referring the same percentage of African Americans to the LEAD program and giving them that opportunity for tools. And I think it's really important to just address the fact that our criminal justice system historically is not fair to marginalized communities, to communities of color. And one of the reasons why I am involved in the LEAD program is, my community is the African American community, and we are underrepresented in terms of being prosecutors in this office. And it's really fulfilling work to be able to be part of the solution and to be able to contribute to something where I know that every single day I am doing something to help my community by offering an alternative to incarceration.
Yeah, well, we're glad you're here doing that work. I just read in the paper, I think 2 days ago, that our new dean of the UW Law School, African American, former prosecutor, but also that I think 6% of the graduating class from this last year leaving UW were African American students and now lawyers. And so, yeah, I think we need, across the realm, we need to do a lot better job. But does that have any meaning for you as you think about our new dean up at the UW? Is that an encouragement to you?
It is. It's always an encouragement to see someone who it looks like me in a position of leadership, and hopefully that sets a model and encourages others that we belong here too, and we should be in the law school. I think percentages in terms of applying for law school is down, but hearing that number, it's upsetting because we need good prosecutors, and we need good African American prosecutors. And it's something that our office, I know, strives to do in terms of all of our diversity and recruitment, and that's why I'm here. So.
Yeah, good. Well, if you would, I want to turn it a little bit to you. Tell us a little bit about your path, just even to law, to decide to, because I know you had at least some jobs before you ever went to law school that were in the King County Prosecutor's Office. Everything
always works out for a reason. I think you're where you're supposed to be because of it. But I stepped foot in this courthouse in 1994. I was a volunteer of King County Kids Court for almost 10 years, from 1994 to about 1995. Which is still operating. And King County Kids Court was an amazing program that really introduces kids who have been victims of sexual assault or witnesses to violent crime. They get a fun day in the courthouse before they have to come testify. And I loved being part of that program. And in that program, I met a lot of prosecutors who would do part of their presentation here. And at that time, it didn't really occur to me to go to law school. I was going to be an architect major. I loved design, and that's what I was going to do. But ultimately, that did not work out. And I came back to Seattle, and it's interesting. I worked, one of my 3 jobs in undergrad was to work as a bank teller, and I worked at a little branch called Seafirst Bank in Newport Hills and Bellevue. And unfortunately, our bank was robbed twice in 1 week, and I decided I didn't want to be a bank teller after that. And I reached out to the King County Kids Court director at that time and said, are there any volunteer opportunities? And she set me up in the Victim Assistance Unit. And I worked in the Victim Assistance Unit off and on for about 6 years. And I think that's what really motivated me to pursue a degree in the law and to think about being a prosecutor. And I think the other thing that I thought about while I was here is I did not see a lot of African American women prosecutors, and I thought, I can do this. And my time in victim assistance, the thing I liked most is talking to victims on the phone and explaining to them the court system, which is really complicated, and because we are so busy and overloaded, we don't really take the time to do that. And I am not a legal mastermind, but I do think I have the ability to talk to people in plain language. And so I thought, I think I could do this. And ultimately, my dream was to be a prosecutor, and anything after that has been a bonus. So the fact that I'm here.
So law school really was the pursuit of this vision that you'd already had kind of in your experiences in the prosecutor's office.
Totally. So I feel really fortunate to be here. This is going to be my 21st year, and I've been able to do some amazing things with mental health court, drug court, and now LEAD. And I also was able to do great trial work, and I love trial. And so it's really been a dream come true, and I'm just fortunate.
Do you think there are particular aspects of your practice or the office that might be misunderstood by people who work outside, who are not a part of our system? And what are some of those things?
I think there's a lot of myths out there in terms of what our office does, and specifically with LEAD. LEAD is not a get-out-of-jail-free card. One of the reasons why we have a prosecutorial liaison for LEAD is to make sure that we are keeping true to the integrity of the program and what we're trying to address. And what we're trying to address in that program is reducing criminal conduct. And so having that prosecutorial liaison means that this is a check and balance for that program. It doesn't mean that we're letting everybody out and that we're not prosecuting. It's actually more eyes making sure that individuals are engaging and that they actually are reducing their criminal conduct. And so I think that's one of the myths that kind of goes toward this program. It is important to examine our practice for sure, but we still have to be committed to public safety. That is our number one priority. And what we need to do is look at what we're doing in order to address that.
Well, Natalie, you told me earlier that when you considered law school, you had this thought in your head that was, I can do that. And all these years later, I'm prepared to tell you, you can do that, and you have done that, and you've done it really brilliantly. We're so glad you're a part of our office. We're so glad you're a part of the LEAD effort in that team of people who are really trying to find a new way to engage people and move them into better lives and out of addiction. So thank you for what you do for us.
Thank you, Mark.
And thanks for being here this morning.
Thank you.
I'm Mark Larson. Thanks so much for being with us today. We'll see you next time.